Alrighty, so week 3, 747. The psalm we're going through this week is Psalm 75. Uh, we mentioned this last week that there's four things when it comes to inductive Bible study that we're looking for: observation, interpretation, summarization, and application. And so you guys have these. This is really helpful. What we're really here for is to help out with the interpretation side of it. And so we're going to be walking through the text. And yeah, you know what? Let's just get started. All right, so Psalm 75 starts out, "We praise you, God. We praise you for your name is near." People tell of your wonderful deeds, and literally what that means is wonders. So it's not the day-to-day things that are necessarily in mind here, although we don't lose sight of those. But we're talking about big and marvelous things. We're talking about the the plagues in Egypt. We're talking about him changing the water in Exodus from being sour to being sweet. We're talking big and wonderful things here. And we continue on. We say, "You say, I choose the appointed time. It is I who judge with equity." And that word equity here means it's him who judges fairly, justly, and impartially. And then it continues on into verse 3. "When the earth and all its people quake, it is I who hold its pillars firm." One of the things that we like to look for when we're looking at a passage is things that are repeated. And right here, I have circled the I, it is I, it is I. Because really this verse, I, it can be interpreted, it is I who choose the appointed time. It is I who judge. It is I who hold its pillars firm. And so what we see in this is a progression. And so and with every statement, the meaning is getting bigger. It's getting more and more full. He says, "It is I who choose the appointed time." The appointed time that the world would be judged. It is, and then when it happens, it is him who judges with equity, who judges fairly, who judges impartially, who judges justly, and how important those things are. And it's all pushing to this idea that when the earth and all its people quake, when he comes to judge, the world is going to be shaken. He says, "It is I. It is I who hold its pillars firm." It's this idea that he's bringing stability to a world that's not. We like to think that our world is stable, but the reality is that we're pretty much always in this spot. The earth and everything in it is trembling. It's sitting in judgment. It's waiting in judgment for this, for the one who says, "It is I who hold its pillars firm, who brings stability." But then it moves on, and we go to verse 4. And this is really where the problem of the psalm is introduced. Read it with me. To the arrogant, I say, boast no more. And to the wicked, he says, do not lift up your horns. Do not lift up your horns against heaven. And then again, do not speak so defiantly. And so we say the same thing, idea that we see here, where it's a layered. It is I, it is I, it is I. We're saying do not, do not, do not. And he's saying do not lift up your horns. And all the way down over here, the thing about horns, it's a symbol. It's in that day and age, it would have been understood that he's talking about strength. And so when we could really just plug it in and see, and to the wicked, do not lift up your strength. Don't try and raise yourself up. Do not lift yourself up in your own strength against heaven. Do not speak so defiantly, and you can kind of read into the end of that. Do not speak so defiantly against heaven. He's saying, do not lift up your horns, and it's a general idea. It's just kind of laying the foundation. Do not try and go against what God is already doing. Do not lift up your horns against heaven. It's an even more emphatic. You know, heaven is where God lives, right? And there's an old song that says, "And earth and its footstool." Earth is his footstool. But then this last part, it's the summation of all this. Do not speak so defiantly against heaven. Do not, do not, do not. And for me, I was going, hey, I would expect an answer to come right away, but it doesn't. Sorry. Um, there is an answer, but it's not the kind of answer that we would expect. What we expect is okay, tell me what to do then. And that's not what happens, but we are given an answer. And the answer here, when he says do not, he says, see, no one from the east or from the west or from the desert, which in other translations it will read south. Either one is appropriate. Or from the desert can exalt themselves. And if you're reading the same thing I am, you're noticing the same thing that I am. You're seeing east, west, and you're seeing south. So what about the north? See, the idea is that that the enemy is coming in from the north. For the people, it would be a flashback, and we've mentioned this a couple times in our talks and in other Bible studies, the idea of Hezekiah and Sennacherib. When he comes down and he sends his general to talk to the men on the wall, and they say, don't trust your God, he's not going to save you. See, Assyria was from the north, and they would come down. He says, no one from the east or from the west or from the south can exalt themselves. No one is going to, how to say it? No one is able to do this on their own. With the enemy coming from the north, the help isn't coming from the east, from the west, or from the south. And in fact, as I was reading through this, the reality is that the help comes from here, from the one whose name is near, from God Himself, and that is further amplified in verse 7. Says, it is God who judges. Not those from the east, from the west, from the south. It's not the enemy that comes from the north. It's God who judges. I don't know about you guys, but when I hear that, I think a lot of times of people who say, only God can judge me. And that's not what this verse is saying. It's not saying, oh, only God can judge me. It's saying it is God who judges. It's God who at the end of time is gonna, as it says here, He brings down one and He exalts another. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but this right here, these asterisks are going to point to something further down the line. So let's move on down to verse 8 and see. Here's the reality. See, the reality is, in the hand of the Lord is a cup. And I circled this because a lot of times in the Old Testament, when there's talk about a cup, it's often a cup of wrath. It's not a good thing. The metaphor or perhaps the phrase that would be used in poetic language is drinking the cup of wrath. And that's the same idea. That's going to be illustrated here as we move on. In the hand of the Lord is a cup of wrath, full of foaming wine and mixed with spices. He pours it out, and the wicked of the earth drink it down to its very dregs. And this idea here, dregs, that's like when you drink coffee, maybe you've made it yourself, you drink it all the way down to the last bit. And all that's left are the little coffee bits at the bottom of the cup, and that's the dregs. And so he's saying at some point in the time that I've appointed, the wicked will drink fully of my wrath. And in essence, what he's saying is they're going to be destroyed. That's the reality, that though they try to raise themselves up, although they try to raise their fists at heaven, the reality is that they're going to be destroyed. And see, the answer lies in here is not that we lift our fists towards heaven and try to fight the things that are going on in our lives, but it's to rest in the fact that it's God who judges. It's Him who brings down one and exalts another. In other Psalms, David says this, that why do the wicked prosper? That's essentially what's the question that's being asked here. Very, very similarly. But once again, here's the reality: it's that the wicked are going to be destroyed. And so finally, see, we have the problem all the way over here, and I would expect our response of the answer for the thing that we are supposed to do to come after it, but it doesn't come all the way until verse 9. And then all the way over here at verse 9, it says, as for me, he says, what I'm going to do, I will declare this forever. And what is it that he's going to declare? And it says, I'm going to declare this forever. I will sing praise. So once again, we see this build of I will. And this is the writer. He's saying, I will declare this forever. And then, you know what? Even more so, I'm not just going to declare it. I'm going to sing praise. It's another step. And he's not trying to say it's speaking versus singing. He's trying to add the emphasis. I will sing praise to the God of Jacob. The one who says. And he said, here's the reason for our response to the problem. Here's the reason why we declare. Because of the one who says this. I will cut off the horns of all the wicked. That ties in with here. He brings down one. He brings down the wicked. He will cut off the horns of the wicked. He will cut off the strength of the wicked. But then check this out. And then this is huge. Because for us it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. And then he says, but the horns, the strength of the righteous, those who believe in God, will be lifted up. And that's here. He exalts another. So he brings down one, he cuts them off, and he exalts another. He lifts them up. And it's a very small thing, but I don't know if we see this or not. The righteous will be lifted up. There's not an implication of the righteous will rise on their own power, on their own strength. No, he says, I will lift them up. By their strength, and their strength is, for us, is his son. He says, I will lift them up. He will lift us up. See, this little mark down here and all the way up there in the corner, they may look like out of place, but I usually use that to mean bookends. It starts off nearly the same way that it begins. It says, we praise you. We praise you for your name is near. And people tell of your wonders. And the greatest wonder is this right here. That he cuts off the horns of the wicked, but the horns of the righteous, for us he raises us up. And as I was reading through this, the last tidbit before I send you guys off is this apparently, the psalm itself was written before any tragedy ever came. By looking back, by holding on to the wonderful deeds. The response before tragedy came was that we will praise you. And looking forward and going, hey, all this may happen, but at the end of the day, I'm going to sing your praises. So, hope that helps for this week. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email, shoot me a text, whatever the case may be. So there it is, Psalm 75, and we'll see you guys Wednesday.